Hello, I'm John Rossi, a touring drummer with a love of all things animal. When I'm on the road, I visit as many zoos, aquariums... Hey, wait a minute. What's going on? Hey, what's going on there? Hello? 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 We interrupt your regularly scheduled program to bring you Rossifari Zoo news. News you can use from the world of zoos and conservation. Every week, we bring you breaking news and analysis from around the globe, featuring the animals you love and the people who care for them. And here's your anchorman, John Rossi. Hello, 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 and welcome back to Rossifari Zoo News, your look at everything going on in the world of zoos, aquariums, conservation, and general animal weirdness. Y'all, before we get to it this week, I just want to take a moment to remind y'all to make sure that you hit subscribe so you don't miss any Zoo News episodes or any of my interview episodes that drop every Tuesday. Also, make sure that you're following along on the socials at Rossifari and on TikTok at Rossifari Pod. And I mention those places in particular because it's been an interesting week on the socials for Rossifari. We have had a couple of videos go viral. Not entirely surprisingly, one of them is me drumming with Emily again, and that's gotten close to 2 million views between the different platforms. What really shocked me is that one of my tree kangaroo videos has started going really viral on YouTube, and a different one, but the same idea, tree kangaroo at Woodland Park Zoo, two different tree kangaroos actually, but has started going viral on Instagram. The one on Insta has over 40,000 views. I forget how much the one on YouTube does, but lots. And it's all led to me finally getting over the 50,000 followers hump on my main socials. And it's so funny now because TikTok has blown up and Insta has blown up. And I only recently started the YouTube channel. So even with a ton of views, it's I'm well under 200 followers on there because I literally just started it and only started pushing videos, a week or two ago. And then Facebook just kind of exists. I know a lot of you all connect with me on there, but I don't really use it other than to connect with the people who message me. All of the posts on there, it just copies automatically over from Insta. So my numbers are wildly inconsistent from platform to platform, but it's cool to see this growth because, that means more people are going to get to see these amazing animals and hear these incredible stories of the amazing zoos and aquariums and people that work at them in the United States and really around the world. So pretty excited about all of that. But the one thing that I always, and I know I've said this before, and I apologize for repeating myself, but the one thing that I just can't get over with the whole going viral experience is that it never happens immediately, and it never happens for me when I think it's going to. And so the first time when my first Emily video really took off, I was walking through the woods with my dogs and my Zozo, and we were just walking, and all of a sudden my phone was blowing up. And this time the Emily video started going viral, as did one of the tree kangaroo ones, when I was at Aquarium of Niagara. And I was like, what is going on? I'm trying to get ready to go out and talk to people about the seals that call the aquarium home. And my left pocket is going insane. And I look down and I'm like, neat. I have stuff going viral. It's just so weird and trippy and in my case, because I'm moving around so much, I'm removed from the place. I'm not in Massachusetts or Rhode Island. I'm back in Buffalo as this is happening, and I'm at Aquarium of Niagara, and I'm just there volunteering, and I don't know. It's all very weird. Social media and real life colliding is very weird. But yeah, it's been a good time. And I've actually had more people recognize me at facilities recently, keepers and guests, and that's always a lot of fun. So if you are a listener and you see me around, feel free to say hi. Yeah, and that's all I'm going to say about all of that, but life is good. So yeah, I guess it's time. Let's get to it.
Time
All right, so it is time to discuss some births that happened in the last week. And, it's red panda birth season, and we've got some to talk about. So the first one, it's kind of funny. I'm just chilling one day recently, and suddenly my phone starts vibrating like I'm getting a phone call. And I look down, and I see that I've gotten 3 quick Instagram notifications. And I knew immediately that somewhere in the world, a red panda birth had just been announced. And I was not wrong. So we start this segment by saying congrats to the Edmonton Valley Zoo on the birth of red panda twins to parents Kiki and Tango. The pandlets are hitting all of their milestones, nursing well, and learning lots from Kiki. Even though she's a first-time mom, she seems to be doing a great job. So congrats to that incredible facility. And that's not it for the red panda cubs this week. The Ogród Zoo in Poland has announced that red pandas Rainy and Tail have become parents for the first time to twin cubs. So far, they're doing well, growing steadily, and being taken care of by mom perfectly. And, with these stories, I gotta say it. I love when first-time moms do an amazing job with any animals, but especially with pandlets. And that's still not all, as another red panda was born at another zoo in Poland. Mom Indira, who lives at Zoo Poznan, has given birth to her first ever cub, the first time the zoo has seen a red panda birth in over 20 years. And this is another first-time mom that is doing an amazing job, so keepers haven't had to step in to help yet. Congrats to Indira, Dad Toshi, and the whole team at the zoo. Now, I'd like to point out that I have a strong Polish heritage. I'm basically 50% Italian and 50% Polish, so I'd like to think this large number of red panda births in Poland has something to do with me. To be clear, it doesn't, but I'd like to think that. And actually, I'm still not done. Oh boy, I've already killed so many bad, zoo pronunciations since this is all, other countries, and I'm sure I'm going to do it again. So my excitement and my congratulations and my condolences for the pronunciation when I say that 2 red panda cubs have been born at Zoo Boiserie in France. One of the cubs is male and one is female, and both are doing well. So many pandlets to announce this week. It's amazing. Also, I have to point out that, no part of me is French, so I can't take credit for those. But the Polish ones, all me, baby, all me. So moving on from red pandas, Chester Zoo in the UK has announced the birth of a Persian onager foal named Jasper. Now, Persian onagers, which are an equestrian species, are one of the rarest animals on the planet, with a total population of around 600 individuals. This subspecies, which is also known as the Persian Asiatic wild ass, actually went extinct in the wild, but is part of a reintroduction plan that is showing signs of success. Every birth of these subspecies is important because of these low numbers, and also because it gives me an excuse to repeatedly use the phrase wild ass without being naughty. But seriously, congrats to the Chester Zoo. Also, yes, I was tempted to make a joke about wild ass and cheeky, especially since it's a zoo in the UK, but I don't know. It seemed like low-hanging fruit. Anyway, moving on from there. The Kansas City Zoo has announced the birth of 2 rock hyrax pups, or rock hylots, named Latte and Espresso. Parents Perseus and Idaho are doing a great job taking care of the little ones who are already starting to climb and explore their habitat. And in case you're wondering why I laughed, it's because one of the rock hyrax pups, one of the parents rather, is named Idaho. And if you've ever seen a rock hyrax, they kind of look like potatoes. So I'm sure that is where the name comes from. And whether it is or not, I love it for that reason. A new beluga whale has been born at Shedd Aquarium in Chicago to mother Naya. The calf is around 5 feet long and close to 105 pounds and is getting round-the-clock care and observation as it lives behind the scenes with mom, as the first few months of a beluga's life are the time when things can easily go wrong. Still, things are looking great so far, and the team remains cautiously optimistic. Congrats to our friends at Shedd Aquarium. The Virginia Zoo has announced the hatching of 2 white-naped crane chicks to parents Bill and Nina, which are kind of the best names for white-naped cranes because they just sound like a normal human couple, but they're not. But anyway, even though they were born to the same parents, these 2 white-naped crane chicks actually hatched 2 days apart, which is actually common with certain bird species. They will lay eggs a day or 2 apart, and then those eggs will hatch a day or 2 apart. This is the first time white-naped cranes have hatched at the Virginia Zoo, making it an extra special birth, so congrats to the team there. And our friends at the Trevor Zoo have announced the birth of a baby chinchilla to parents Charlie and Waffles. Chinchillas are endangered due to severe population loss over the last 15 years because of hunting by humans. So congrats to Charlie and Waffles on this, their 5th baby. And then that brings us to our deaths for the week, and we start off with 2 devastating stories out of the Toronto Zoo. All animal losses are hard, and young animals are particularly challenging to lose, and we have 2 of those stories out of Toronto this week. The first is that one of the 2 red panda cubs born at the zoo to mother Sakura has passed away. Now, keep in mind, Sakura went to the Toronto Zoo as a bit of a retirement home, as at the age of 10, it was believed her breeding days were behind her. Instead, the zoo was surprised to discover she had arrived pregnant, and she eventually gave birth to 2 cubs. Sakura has also been showing symptoms of unusual neurological activity and has been spending time in the veterinary hospital because of it, though she has mostly been able to stay in her nest box with the cubs, except for when receiving treatment at the hospital. So, unfortunately, Sakura's condition has continued to worsen, and so the zoo did decide to start supplemental feedings of the cubs. Sadly, the smaller cub, a male, started to eat less and show less interest in drinking milk, and despite being taken to the vet hospital at the zoo, he passed away just shy of the age of 6 weeks. I'm not going to go into the details of all that was wrong with the little one, according to the necropsy, because it was a lot. There was a lot going on with that little one. But I will say the zoo did a wonderful, transparent analysis of the full findings. And if you're curious, you can go check them out on their socials. Suffice it to say, the cub was facing an uphill battle from the start. Sending all my love to the team at the Toronto Zoo. They are truly going through it with that whole situation right now. And that's not, as I mentioned, the only loss, as the Toronto Zoo also said goodbye to Matu, a 2-year-old Maasai giraffe. Matu was being castrated, but while under general anesthesia, stopped breathing and he passed away. And this goes back to an issue we've talked about on here before, which is that as amazing as zoo veterinarians are, and they really are, there is a whole lot less information about exotic animals than there is about domestic ones. And even animals that are as common as giraffe in zoos are still hard to get the anesthesia right for every time. The reproductive science team at the zoo was able to collect and bank living genetic material from Matu, which will be stored in the biobank at the zoo to keep his genetics alive in the population. Sending all my love to the team at the Toronto Zoo for these tragic losses. And heading back to red pandas for a moment, the Lake Superior Zoo has said goodbye to 1-year-old Pip, the female panda who arrived from Woodland Park Zoo as part of the SSP. The zoo has no clue what happened as of this time. Cameras confirm she went into her den box at 10 p.m. one night, and she never came out again. There were no signs that something might be wrong. In light of this death and that of the cub at Toronto, I want to share that a recent study showed that roughly 40% of red panda cubs don't make it through their first year of life when born in human care. And I think it's worth mentioning that because some years it feels like we lose a lot of young pandas, often in a relatively small amount of time. And yeah, the truth is that we do, as this study shows, but that is still a significantly better mortality rate than pandas have in the wild in their first year. Like, significantly better. The truth is that red pandas are just not a species with a huge likelihood of making it past their first year. Thank goodness we have incredible zoos taking care of these animals and working to understand them and to save them. Sending condolences to the team at Lake Superior Zoo and also at Woodland Park Zoo, where they really, really loved Pip. And then last but not least in the deaths section this week, Drusillas Park in the UK has said goodbye to Pen, their beloved binturong. He was 18 years old at the time of his passing, a great age for a binturong. He was also one of just 3 Cambodian binturongs in European zoos. As with our Toronto giraffe story, though, the legacy of this animal will live on as the zoo partnered with Nature's Safe to cryogenically preserve Pen's genetic footprint and possibly even use his cryogenically stored sperm to create babies down the road. While his great personality will certainly be missed, it's awesome to know his legacy will live on, not just in the hearts of the people who loved him, but also genetically speaking. And then moving on from the births and deaths of animals, we get to the rest of our zoo news section, which actually starts with a death of a different kind. The Georgia Aquarium has announced the passing of Dr. Brian Davis, the president and CEO of the aquarium. Brian was known for his commitment to the humans and non-human animals in his care, for lifting others up, and for creating a caring and diverse space at the Georgia Aquarium, and at Maritime Aquarium before that. Brian also served on the board of the AZA, including as its chair for a year. He left an indelible mark not just on the facilities he served at, but on the greater AZA community as a whole, and his sudden loss has caused an outpouring of love and grief on social media and beyond. Sending all my love to everyone who was affected by this wonderful man, especially his family and those who worked with him at the Georgia Aquarium. This is a truly tough loss for the zoological community. Staff at the Cheyenne Mountain Zoo recently headed into Pike National Forest in Colorado to help study a very special animal. I'm talking about flammulated owls. Now, this is a tiny owl species that is known to migrate, but not much is known about its migratory patterns other than that they travel from southern Mexico and Central America all the way to southern Canada and back, stopping in Colorado for the summer for breeding purposes. Researchers hope that they will be able to finally track the migratory patterns of these owls to figure out how best to conserve them. It's not surprising to see Cheyenne Mountain Zoo investing in the conservation work of a local species, but it always makes me so happy to see zoos do this kind of thing. The St. Louis Zoo recently discovered that their 8-year-old Sichuan takin named Xing was suffering from arthritis. They sprang into action, starting stem cell treatment on the animal in the hopes of slowing the progression of the disease. Since that time, Xing has become more active in his habitat, climbing regularly, and has also shown an improvement in attitude, which provides some great evidence that the treatments are working. It is so cool to see zoos adapt these new medical procedures, and put them onto animals like takin, just to make sure that their welfare is as good as it can be. Love it. Tropical Storm Debby has been ravaging the western part of Florida and making its way up the eastern coast of the United States, which has included some serious issues for zoos and aquariums in its way. Now, the good news is these facilities are quite used to this and are prepared for every eventuality, but it's always scary to see. For instance, our friends at the Naples Zoo had to close on August 5th because of flooding. Now, everything is okay thanks to the incredible work done by the staff at the zoo. And, hopefully that remains the case for other facilities that will be affected by the storm. I did want to pause here and give a quick shout out to the South Carolina Aquarium because in order to prepare for Debby, the aquarium admitted that they had to stretch their staff resources pretty thin. It takes a lot to prepare, to be ready to respond, and to do the recovery work if the storm causes a lot of damage. And so, as such, the aquarium decided to forego participating in the City of Charleston's First Day Festival, which is coming up on Sunday. Now, that might not, on the surface, seem like a huge deal as you're listening to this, but it really, really is. And the reason why it is because they're basically eschewing publicity to take care of their own staff. And look, I'm not trying to be cynical here. The festival is a big deal, and they serve their community by being there, and that is awesome. I'm not trying to downplay that, but there is the benefit of being seen and being seen in the public and connecting with people. And let's be honest, we all want people to come to, the aquarium. So you go out and you get your faces out there and your name out there, and it's a good thing. It's a win-win. But they decided to do the win-win-win, as Michael Scott would say, and actually just focus on taking care of their staff instead of promoting their business and worrying about people that aren't as close to them right now. And that is a beautiful thing. So I want to give mad props to the South Carolina Aquarium. I also want to talk to you about an organization that I found out about last year and should probably feature on the podcast at some point, now that I think about it. But this organization is called the Zoological Disaster Response, Rescue, and Recovery Organization, also known as ZDR3. They are the largest zoological disaster response organization in the U.S., and they are amazing. The people in ZDR3 don't give a wet slap about accreditation or anything other than helping any zoological facilities that are facing a disaster to get over it as quickly and as painlessly as possible, with a focus on the animals and the staff there. And ZDR3 doesn't just help when disaster hits. They also assist facilities with disaster planning to preventatively minimize the damage caused by the unknown. It is a really cool organization, y'all. You can check them out on socials at ZDR3USA, which is admittedly a terrible handle to remember, so I'll link it in the notes. And maybe I should reach out to them because this seems like a group that, we should probably be sharing far and wide. Our friends at the North Carolina Zoo have achieved an accomplishment that, on the surface, seems to be something that is anything but bragworthy, but it's actually a huge deal. And this story just goes to show how absolutely much we still have to learn about the species we share the planet with. One of the blue death-feigning beetles at the zoo has, get excited, reached adulthood. Woo! Crazy, right? Okay, now, you're probably wondering why we are celebrating that. Well, this is the first time a blue death-feigning beetle has ever reached adulthood in human care. The species is incredibly hard to breed, and until now, none of the animals in human care has made it from birth to adulthood. Fortunately, now that the North Carolina Zoo seems to be finding success with their population, they will be able to share this information with other facilities and, as they learn together, be able to work towards creating a truly sustainable population in human care. So we've been talking a lot recently about the strike at Zoo de Granby, and it turns out that the staff there might not be the only striking zookeeper staff in the near future. The union at Woodland Park Zoo in Seattle has announced that workers there are making preparations for a potential strike. Currently, the team is looking into the idea of running a skeleton crew that would provide necessary care to the animals, but require the zoo to close its doors to the public. Negotiations have been ongoing for the past 10 months, but the workers are frustrated at the direction of the negotiations, particularly stating that the zoo is failing to properly value and retain an experienced workforce. In fact, the union claims that low wages and high turnover have put the zoo's AZA accreditation at risk. Now, that is something that I can neither confirm nor deny. It is just what I have seen the union say. But, hopefully they're not lying, but also hopefully they are, because that would be unfortunate. It's definitely a situation that we will be keeping an eye on here. On a much happier note, by the time you listen to this, the giant panda exhibit will officially be open at the San Diego Zoo. It is fully expected that the bears will cause havoc with crowds this summer, so the zoo has announced that there are 3 ways to experience them right now. When you arrive to the zoo, you can scan the QR code out front to get a giant panda timed ticket. Or you can join the standby line and hope for the best. Or you can add a special experience to your admission, an early mornings with pandas walking tour. Now, if you're considering going to see the newest residents at the San Diego Zoo, it is definitely going to take some extra work, so follow these steps, plan accordingly, and I cannot stress enough that I do not recommend doing the standby line thing. I don't think that's going to go very well. And to close out our Zoo News section this week, SeaQuest has announced that Vince Covino will be stepping down as the CEO of the organization. SeaQuest is a chain of aquariums operating mostly in malls and often without any accreditation outside of the basic USDA approvals. We talked about the fact that one in Connecticut recently closed down without notice, and it was a facility that had multiple citations and findings against it when it comes to animal welfare. I have visited a few SeaQuest locations and usually get a pretty bad vibe when I'm there. When I did decide to check out the one in Connecticut, I was disturbed by literally almost everything I saw there. It was bad. Aaron Nelson will be taking over as the CEO of the company, and it looks like there will be an entirely new leadership team supporting him. So here's hoping they decide to pursue some kind of accreditation and to clean up any of their facilities that need it. And just a friendly reminder, there are 2 major chains that use the whole aquariums in malls strategy. SeaQuest, which is the organization in question, and Sea Life, which is an incredible chain that is AZA accredited. Their facility in Orlando is credited with creating the TED device, the Turtle Exclusionary Device, which has saved countless sea turtles and is legally required to be used by many countries now when it comes to commercial fishing. It's good stuff. As a matter of fact, the sea turtle they first tested TEDs on lives at Sea Life Orlando and is named, creatively enough, Ted. But yeah, you've even heard interviews from Sea Life Arizona and Sea Life Sunshine Coast on this podcast with more facilities from the Sea Life chain to come down the road. So just wanted to put out the reminder that they are 2 very different brands. People do confuse them sometimes, but you shouldn't. We'll just say it that way. I also kind of had a laugh at one quick thing about this. So in the official announcement about Vince stepping down, they phrased it and said that he would be stepping down as the CEO and founder of SeaQuest. You can step down as a CEO, but you can't actually step down as the founder of an organization. I know it was just silly wording, but I found it funny. And that brings us to
Conservation, news time. Oh yeah.
All right, so we spend an inordinate amount of time talking about red pandas and red panda conservation on this podcast because I love them and it's my podcast, so I get to. But here's the crazy thing about that. There isn't actually a ton of conservation work being done to save red pandas in most of their home range. So pandas range from Nepal into India, Bhutan, Myanmar, and China. And yet, whenever you hear about conservation efforts, you hear about them taking place in Nepal. And that's because of a few things. First of all, that's where Red Panda Network is located and doing the work, building the community awareness of the animals and reforesting, etc. And even then, the work isn't being done in all of the areas of Nepal with red pandas yet. Red Panda Network has taken a very wise strategy of working in a concentrated area and then continuing to grow that area as they are able. Also, the governments in other areas of the home range of red pandas are not always as open to conservationists, especially Western conservationists. So that's why it's Nepal and not places like especially China. So really, even though a lot of incredible work is being done to save red pandas, it's taking place in one part of one country in their home range, which also means that only one of the two species has most of the conservation work being done for it. Anyway, I told you all of that to tell you this. Bhutan has entered the chat. The Bhutanese government has recently committed to start to save the red pandas in their country. The Department of Forests and Park Services announced this on World Ranger Day, saying that since red pandas have cultural significance in Bhutan, conservation efforts would begin for the species. In fact, they just completed the first ever census of red pandas in the country, determining that at least 302 pandas live in the country. The survey only covered around 6% of Bhutan, so it is the low-end estimate of the number of pandas there. But that figure is an important one, as it will be the benchmark used to evaluate the success of conservation efforts there moving forward. Adorably, in Bhutan, the red panda is known as the achodonka. I like that part of it. That's not really conservation-y, it's just cool. Anyway, on a less happy note, the first fin whale has been killed in the waters off the coast of Japan as part of new whaling regulations in the country that allow up to 59 of these majestic creatures to be hunted this year. Fin whales are the second largest animal on the planet. It's just sad to see the Japanese government moving backwards on whaling restrictions as the rest of the world tends to be moving towards banning it outright or, at the very least, restricting it further. The hunting of these whales is being conducted by a ship named the Kangai Maru, a new ship that cost $47 million and was financed by government loans to a private whaling company. This is believed to be an early step in the eventual plan to allow additional hunting of endangered species by the government of Japan, despite cries from conservationists in the country and an outrage on the international stage about this. And I mean, look, obviously, hunting endangered species is a freaking problem, but it gets even more complex and interesting when you start to think about ocean life. Right? Things like whales and sea turtles. Because they move freely through the water without national borders impeding them in a way that isn't necessarily true of terrestrial animals. Now, yes, land-based animals can travel across borders, I get that, but ocean animals tend to travel significantly further and through far more areas of the world, so it's harder to think of them as, for lack of a better term, owned by a single country or just a couple countries. Like a whale that gets hunted in Japan is a whale that also calls the US or Canada or China or Australia home at times. So it's a complex subject, but it's one that Japan doesn't seem to care to engage on much on the global stage at this time. Complexity be damned. So this next one is a fascinating story. And again, this gets into the complexities of conservation in a way that I find it fascinating, y'all. So there is a species of crow called the alala, and it's one of the rarest crows in the world and one of only two species of crows that are known to use tools. Now, sadly, this species is extinct in the wild, but still exists in human care. Which leads to the question, well, why not try a reintroduction process? And the answer is that conservationists have done that, releasing birds to their native habitat, but it has never been successful because there are so many predators in their native habitat. So all of the released birds were wiped out when reintroductions were attempted. So now conservationists are thinking of trying a new strategy. They are planning on releasing alala crows on the island of Maui, an island where this species has never lived before. Now, it is incredibly rare for a species to be introduced because we can't call it a true reintroduction at that point, can we? Outside of its historical range. But the island of Maui has significantly less predators than the Hawaiian Islands that these crows used to live on. So the idea is that having them back in the wild on the same island chain the species used to thrive on is preferable to allowing them to, stay extinct in the wild. And I find this to be an interesting and controversial idea. I mean, technically, this would make these birds an invasive species, which, as we know, can cause all kinds of issues, including many that are not foreseen. And it's extra interesting because Hawaii is super strict about what they allow onto their islands at all because they are deathly afraid of invasive species. On the other hand, it's the same general location, and I assume the conservationists in question are working hard to anticipate any problems dropping these birds onto Maui would cause. This is one that I'm actually really curious to hear what y'all think about. It's a rare idea, but it's not unprecedented. So, yeah, let me know what you think. And then last but not least in conservation news this week, the South African government has shared an update on poaching numbers in the first half of 2024. During that time, 229 rhinos were poached, which isn't a great number, let's be honest, but is down from the same period the year before when 231 rhinos were poached. So, okay, it's down by 2. So while a basically stagnant number isn't exactly ideal, there is some reason for hope with this announcement. First of all, the fact that the number didn't go up and did go down a little bit is better than the alternative. But the second positive figure is that the last 2 months saw a dramatic drop in poaching. In May and June of 2024, 21 and 22 rhinos were poached, respectively, versus 42 and 34 during those months in 2023. This change in numbers is attributed to a dehorning operation that has seen the dehorning of more than 1,000 rhinos since April of this year. So, while the mostly stagnant 6-month numbers aren't ideal, the truth remains that there's a lot of reason for hope for the rhinos of South Africa, and it looks like, at least with limited data, that the dehorning programs are working. So, sad to see, but it works out for the rhinos and they get to live, so yay that. In other news. So, turns out the Olympics are going on right now, but another sporting competition recently took place, the Wimbledon tennis tournament. And over the course of that tournament, over 55,000 tennis balls were used. What happens to those balls, you ask? Well, every year since 2001 has seen many of those balls get upcycled into tiny homes for harvest mice, one of the most ridiculously cute and tiny mouse species out there. I actually have a friend who, their favorite animal is the harvest mouse, and I don't blame her. Yay, they're adorable. Anyway, these mice are typically found in fields of wheat and oats and long grasses. They normally weave homes out of shredded grass and reeds, which they build on the higher parts of these plants, well off the ground. Because they're so light, they can just run up these things. It's ridiculous. Anyway, farming methods and flooding can often wipe these homes out. So conservationists in the UK started taking the Wimbledon balls, cutting holes in them, and putting them on poles in the habitats the mice call home. These homes take no effort for the mice to create, are waterproof, stand out enough from the crops to not be wiped out during the farming, and the poles are strong enough to make them not get wiped out by flooding. What an awesome solution for this adorable species, especially because it leads to photos online of tiny little mouse heads popping out of tennis balls. Worth checking out.
Animal, animal, animal holidays. Animal, animal, animal holidays.
All right, it is August, which is Asian Elephant Awareness Month, National Catfish Month, National Parks Month, and August is for Antelope Month. Then for our individual animal holidays, August 9th, the day this episode is dropping, is Anya Keen Day. In case you don't quite recognize the name, and you should, Anya Keen is an incredible contributor to the podcast who has been sending me zoo news basically since I started doing zoo news, back when there were like 5 names to say thank you to. Anya was always the first one. So Anya, I hope that you have an incredible birthday on the 9th, the day this episode drops, and it is your special birthday episode. Although you have to share it. I'll explain in a minute. August 10th is World Lion Day and is also Miles's birthday. Miles is turning 10 on the 10th. So, Anya, this is your birthday episode, but you have to share it with my buddy Miles. He also gets this to be his birthday episode. So, happy birthday, buddy. Yay! The 11th is World Krill Day and Action Indonesia Day. And I bet both Anya and Miles are really glad that they weren't born on World Krill Day. I feel like a lot of bullies would make fun of them for, oh, who am I kidding? Not a single bully ever in the history of the world has known that August 11th is World Krill Day. But anyway, I digress. The 12th is World Horola Day. The 13th is International Armadillo Day. The 14th is Golden Frog Day. And the 15th is the Day of the Cotton Top Tamarin. And I don't know why, but I love that instead of it being Cotton Top Tamarin Day, it is the Day of the Cotton Top Tamarin. It just sounds so much fancier. All right, so there you have it, folks. Another episode of Rossifari Zoo News is in the books. I want to take a moment to say thank you to my Red Panda level patrons, Dr. Laura Schenk, Dr. Stephen Williamson, Barbara Bennett, Jenny Owens, and Kevin Williams. And I would also like to remind you that you can support the pod for as little as $3 a month by going to patreon.com/Rossifari. I'd also like to say thank you to everyone who contributed to the episode this week, including birthday girl Anya Keen, Colleen Linehan, Kim Cooley-Croninger, Carrie Kirkpatrick, Kevin Williams, Emily Rockbuck, Dr. Laura Schenk, Lizard Dunlevy, another birthday boy, Miles Rossi, Ali Malensky, Kay Malensky, Tiana Bush, Justin Williams, and Yoshioka. Dominika Lukowicz, which is the first time I have gotten a Zoo News email from Poland, which was pretty stinking amazing to get. So Dominika, thank you so much, and I hope I did justice to your name. Crystal Chapman, Jennifer Curtinitis, Karen Musklow, Holly Page, Elizabeth Vickery Lewis, Dr. Zoe Rossi, and Rowena White. Y'all make sure you bang it back here on Tuesday because we've got another really exciting episode. One of those cool interview ones. And this time it's not just me blathering on, either with Zoo News or about drumming with an elephant, but it might be from the same facility. You never know. And don't forget, the words newsy credits backwards are Steiderkiswen. The Rossifari podcast is produced, hosted, and engineered by John Rossi. Editing and fact-checking by John and Dr. Zoe Rossi. Our theme song is Sevens by Nathan Burke, performed by Nathan and John. Interrupting John theme and additional voices by Taylor Isaac Gray. You can reach John directly on Instagram and Facebook at Rossifari or by email at rossifaripod@gmail.com. Rossifari is part of the Daydreamer Media Network. Now, stop listening to me and go visit a zoo. Releasing birds to their native habitat.